What's up, everybody? Welcome to Don't Give Up with Jacob. Today, I have a special guest joining me on my show. Not only that, but she's also an HCPC registered psychologist with a passion for her work, who has a particular interest in helping neurodivergent individuals understand themselves in an affirmative and useful way. She assesses and diagnoses neurodevelopmental conditions, including autism and ADHD, and offers therapy to a range of individuals. So it is my pleasure to welcome to my show Rebecca Ker.
Hi, Jacob. It's quite the introduction.
All right, then. Welcome to my show, Rebecca Ker. I'm so glad you were able to make it today. I got a lot to ask you about your living. Sounds good?
Sounds good. I'm ready.
All right. So, first off, I want you to give a little introduction about yourself and introduce yourself to my audience and tell my audience what you do for an everyday living and what inspired you to be doing this type of work.
Okay. You're right. I'm Rebecca and I am a psychologist. So HCPC registered means I am a registered psychologist because I work in England and they are our governing body. So I qualified about 15, 16 years ago, and I've specialized in that time in working with neurodivergent individuals. So I work a lot with autistic individuals or ADHDers or people with traits of both. And it's just become an area that I absolutely love working with. So I work with children and adults and families and try and help people understand themselves better and understand each other better.
That sounds super neat. It's great that you work with children, teens, and adults because I love being around children as well. It's just interesting to be able to connect with children and their families and just make them smile.
Yeah, that's very cool.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you, when you're assessing someone like me, how can you make sure you are really understanding themselves instead of just checking boxes?
Okay. That's a really, really good question. So the assessment process, and I don't actually know how different it is in the States, but over here, the assessment process has to follow a certain kind of set of rules and guidelines. So it has to be, and where I work, we're really proud that they are super thorough assessments. So our first meeting would be just getting to know you and understanding a bit about your story and the things that you've noticed and the things that you describe being brilliant at or finding difficult. From that, we would also then think about using lots of questionnaires and asking the school for information, parents for information. We're trying to gather a picture of what you're like in different places. If someone's changed a lot recently, then we want to understand because we don't want to misdiagnose someone who is stressed or depressed as having a communication difference because there's a better explanation for it. Does that make sense? So if we go through that screening process and we think there's enough information that someone might be autistic, then we use the diagnostic tool. So they can only say yes or no to the thing we're assessing for. So for a diagnosis, we do an observational assessment. I don't know if you went through this, but we have a series of like puzzles and interactive bits. So someone's observing. So it's much more understanding how you do things than just ticking boxes. Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah, that pretty much makes sense. It's like you have to put together this huge puzzle to
exactly?
figure out if someone has autism or ADHD. I also had to go through that the hard way. I went to the doctors and they played some games with me, and I thought it was fun, but it was actually a diagnosis for autism. And
Yeah.
that's what I learned once I got autism, and it really put this big puzzle together.
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking, when you were diagnosed?
I was still pretty young when I got diagnosed with autism. We just moved to another state and I was still diagnosed developmentally delayed, but we had a doctor's appointment where I was diagnosed with autism.
Okay. Okay. So that's a part of my work that I really, really enjoy, that puzzle piece that you talked about, like getting to know someone, understanding all the different perspectives and giving someone a diagnosis that's useful to them. And it's really important that this feels like a good thing, that it feels like information that helps someone understand themselves, be kind to themselves, ask for the support if they need it, and play to their strengths. I think, and again, I'm talking about life in London, not necessarily America, but I think our schools are really good at focusing on celebrating average brains. And if you're good at memorizing facts and sitting still and, being really sociable, school might feel really easy, but often it makes us feel bad if we don't fit that very average bit in the middle. And I think that's why I love the diagnostic process and helping someone actually recognize they're not naughty. They might struggle with concentration, but that's not the same as, it's not right that they're getting into trouble at school when there's a different way of understanding it. And that's the bit I really enjoy.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I also want to ask you, after someone finds out they're autistic, what are some ways that they can start feeling good about it instead of being confused or unsure, just like how I kind of felt when I got diagnosed?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, Jacob, you might be better at answering this than me because you've been through it. But I always feel like the diagnosis is just the beginning. And then from that moment, there is the beginning of lots of information, lots of understanding to happen. That the autism spectrum is a really big spectrum, and there'll be loads of information about autism that won't feel relevant to you, I'm sure, because there are lots of people who are also autistic and very different to you. So the first bit is understanding what the diagnosis means to that person, what that means they might need help with, but also where they're brilliant. Like everyone, we're supposed to be different. That's natural. That's useful, and kind of understanding where someone's strengths lies is a really important part. So I often say to people, if you imagine you were stranded on a desert island and you could choose 10 people to be on that island with you to give you the best chance of getting off that island, you would choose 10 different brains. You wouldn't choose 10 engineers. You want a couple of engineers, but you also want someone to keep the team working together. You want someone with the big ideas and the empath. And that's neurodiversity. We're supposed to all have different strengths, and that makes us stronger all together as long as we all can understand each other and respect each other and find the thing that excites us and that we're good at.
Wow, neat. I also find autism like that. And about what you were saying about being stranded on an island, I bet most people would say maybe they'd want their family and their friends to come and
Mm.
rescue them because nothing beats having family and friends who actually understand you and can get you off of that stranded island so you're not
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and it's interesting that statistically, being autistic, your like rates of autism are higher around Silicon Valley and around loads of big computer type places, industrial places. Over here, like academic places have higher rates. Like being autistic comes with a lot of strengths as well. And I think that's something that's really important to explain through the diagnostic process, that it's different, it's not less, that there's loads of strengths that we associate with autism as well.
Yeah, we all associate with autism. It's not a disability, it's like a superpower almost.
Mm. I think a lot of people find the superpower idea difficult as well because there are some things that it does make difficult, and lots of my clients don't like the idea that it's only strength, like autism is only a good thing, because it's a good and bad thing, and everything's a good or bad thing. That everyone has things they're good at and things they find difficult, and so some people, it's really important to them to understand and have other people understand that there are some things they genuinely find hard, and that's legitimate. That's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And by the way, I feel like a lot of people misunderstand what it's like to live with autism, especially some of my teachers, my classmates, and even some of my family members sometimes. So, what is something that you wish more people actually got right about autism?
That's a really good question. I I mean, I'm really interested in what you would like people to better understand about you, but I think generally the autistic brain is often very good at patterns and analyzing and thinking. And the bit that it sometimes finds difficult is tuning into the emotional side and the perspective taking side. But that even people who can, autistic people who are very good at chatting and the social stuff, it might be costing them more energy. They're using the thinking side of their brain to do it. So it's more tiring. They might need to take more breaks. And it's not just because someone appears to be able to do it, doesn't mean we can assume we understand how they do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because even though some people may think autism is not really the best of superpowers, that may not be true to us because, sure, autism can have its strengths, but it can also have its struggles and weaknesses. But that's why we need to improve our skills of living with autism so we can get better and better and learn more.
Mm. A lot of women and girls, especially, do something called autistic masking. Have you heard about this idea that they can pretend better? So they can sort of pretend to be neurotypical, and often that leads to them feeling very, very tired or burnt out or stressed or to have mental health problems because they're trying to change themselves to make other people more comfortable. And I hope that in the future, everyone can be more themselves without having to work hard to pretend to be anything else.
Yeah, masking is one of the hardest challenges when it comes to living with autism, especially for me when it comes to being in school or in a certain store. It's hard to just hide away who you actually are underneath the mask, but that's just something people need to appreciate a lot more about yourself and
Mm.
why you're trying to change who you are.
Yeah, agreed. And hopefully it's something. So I often say you don't grow out of autism, but hopefully you grow into it. Like the more you can grow into an adult that likes who they are, can be honest about who they are. Like this is a wonderful example of someone kind of proud of who they are and sharing their story and educating other people. That's a wonderful place to get to, and that's what we hope every young autistic person can grow into. And adult life, we have more choices, we have more control. School often feels like the need to mask is much higher.
Yeah, I agree. So